Welcome, PBO people, to the second edition of Stargazer Power Rankings. I am here with Ben
What up?
and Za.
Back again to make people mad.
I'm gonna let y'all take it away with number 14. Tell us about it.
All right, so we are here with post week 2 power rankings, and coming in at number 14, we are going to have the Crown Point Cetitans. They changed their team up, as you can see in the bottom right. So now that they have Ninetales over Torkoal, which is good at least. They've got big Salamence. They kind of relied a little bit less on Sun now, which I think is probably a good direction to go in with their new Enam, with their Salamence. But with the first 2 weeks, they did have that Torkoal, and evidently it did not go pretty for them. 2-0 and 4 losses. Really not the best look there. Their kill leader on this board, Enamorous, I think those kills didn't come from them. I'm pretty sure Mug got those kills. Maybe they got a kill with it, one kill with it, 1 or 2 kills with it last week against Bandito. But it just hasn't been pretty. That first week against Orlando really got put on the back foot almost immediately by Great Tusk. The Slitherwing was taking too much damage from Headlong in the Sun. It wasn't getting a booster defense boost, instead it was getting booster attack, and that really hurt the Slitherwing in terms of its ability to stop Great Tusk. And then Tornadus in Sun with its Bleakwind Storm was really just wreaking havoc across the whole team. And then last week, they really just weren't able to get any footing. They were taking way too much damage. Their Ghost Ments went down way too early, in my opinion. And it led to a really disastrous situation where Chi-Yu was trying to, break through a Tyranitar at the end, and they just really had no gas going for them. It kind of just feels like they're not doing a lot of, enough damage a lot of the time, which is kind of a wild thing to happen on Sun. And it's leading to some pretty bad losses that aren't really that close. What do you think, Saw?
Yeah, we haven't. I think maybe some of these games were a little bit more competitive than the final total shows, which can be the way with hard-hitting teams, or in theory, hard-hitting teams like this team should be. I don't know that it was quite as bad as it looks. There was a couple. They had a cool Registeel set that if they didn't have, I don't remember exactly what it was. One specific move the Registeel would have won from a certain position. But I think I said it on the preview. I don't think Terra Chi-Yu is good, and I don't think Sun without the gouging payoff is particularly good. So I think combining those two things together, you've just seen kind of a little bit of a lackluster performance, and then with the non-Terra Venusaur and kind of a hodgepodge together, like Enamorous is good in a vacuum, but I don't know that a lot of these guys support each other particularly well. And I think we're seeing that in the results, is it's just a little bit too awkward to play better constructed teams. And as funny as the Terra Chi-Yu numbers look, if you never actually get the attack off, it doesn't matter. And that's the issue that I think this team is running into.
Yeah, I will say in week 2 against the Orleans, they did miss an Ice Punch, or they missed a dual Wing Beat against Okidogi. And if they hit it, I think the Ments had a pretty good shot at doing something. So that's pretty unfortunate, because I think they kind of needed the Ments that game. I think Ments was kind of the win con, quote unquote, both for keeping hazards up and sweeping potential. It was like the best Pokemon they had. And so losing 2 Pokemon to Okidogi right away, the defensive Venusaur, it held no value. It didn't do its job against Okidogi at all. So that was unfortunate. The Enam did get 2 kills that week, which was nice, but I do feel like, he might be playing a little too defensive with what's supposed to be a super offensive team under Sun.
Yeah, I agree.
Alright, we can move on to number 13. Who's going to be the Worcester Woopers. Bit of a fall off from the Woopers here so far. I don't think they've necessarily played horrible in any of their games. I think they've brought some interesting sets. And I think their team is still pretty decent. I don't hate the team at all. It's just I think they're running into some tough challenges. I think their schedule is really tough, and also I think it's becoming evident that the Terra captains here aren't the best in Landorus and Cryogonal. So they lost week 1 to Saudas Chimps, and in that game, I think they had a chance. It was really kind of awkward. But they kept like letting Raikou live. It was at like 20-something%, and they just wouldn't kill it. They would U-turn on it and stuff, but they refused to kill it. And then eventually that came back to bite them, and Raikou went on a tear, and I think got 3 kills in that match. And then this last week against me, the Cryogonal set was really interesting, but I don't know if they played it necessarily the best at the beginning, where they didn't get enough, acid armors up. They didn't recover enough time. I don't know if they could have PP stalled Endeavor maybe. I don't know if they played their cards to the absolute maximum to try and see if Cryogonal could actually win that game right there. And once the Cryogonal switched out and not even died, it kind of felt like they lost pretty much all control, and there was almost no chance of winning. And I think that fate was kind of sealed when the Iron Hands got confused, just because what's it called? I mean, the confusion didn't actually matter. Once Iron Hands got chipped, everything was chipped, and Barraskewda could kind of just liquidate literally every Pokemon and kill it from the range that they were at. So I think his main flaw was letting everything live, but getting them really, really low, so that they kind of just became Barraskewda food. Like letting Prim go down to 50, letting Scizor go down to 10, letting Kyurem go down to like 40. All these things where you just let Pokemon take a ton of chip and then switch them out, so that they kind of just become like sweeper food later. What do you think, Za?
I agree. I don't think the team is bad, although I think I said before the season, I don't think Lando I is really that good, and I don't think it's worth the Terra. If it's not on hands already, if we haven't changed it, change it to hands. You'll get way more out of it.
I would change the hands, and I would also get it off Cryogonal's fun, and with Terra it is better, but because this is high Terra, and you can Terra some of these like you could Terra like Hisuian Arcanine theoretically or something.
Yeah, I think I would definitely try to get it on hands and or Scizor. Like I think you'll get way more out of that than Lando
or Harkness.
With the play, I just don't think Woopers has played particularly well. Like there was definitely a line with the Cryogonal to where they could have won. Now again, it was a janky set, but there is definitely a way that they could have won from that position. After that, I think it did kind of go downhill. Although I do remember they made a really weird switch in with Kyurem for no reason.
They brought Kyurem on Palafin. I'm almost positive it's because they thought Palafin was going to Jet Punch this Scizor.
But even then, that's a thing where you got to let that guy come in on a free switch, like after a KO or something. So this is probably like a top 6 team, even with the bad Terras in terms of construction. But Woopers just has made some fun sets too. I like some of the sets that they made. But it's not being capitalized on in the game. That's why they're down here.
Yeah, I think definitely a little bit of lack of capitalization, a little bit too preserving of Pokemon, and it ends up, you just need to be a little bit more aggressive, in my opinion. Kill some Pokemon and stay in for some turns, and I think things will turn around for you, because I think the team is still pretty good. Alright, so at number 12 we have Lion City. So the week 2 game for this between Lion City and Mug hasn't happened yet. So pending that result, these could change. So just based off of the week 1, I thought Lion City actually had like a pretty cool Jirachi, the air balloon, with the Thunderbolt and the Psychic Noise to block Corviknight Recover, and then Baton Pass to get some momentum afterwards. I thought that was actually pretty clever. I liked that set a lot. I almost gave it set of the week even though he lost, but because he lost, and he lost pretty convincingly, I couldn't. Not tearing the Blastoise the turn where you Shell Smashed, just really unfortunate. The Terra Blast did nothing because it wasn't Stab. I feel like if you Terra there and you kill the Pokemon that ended up living, you have just a way better shot at winning. But I still think the team is pretty solid. I believe the Moth is going to be Terra now instead of the Blastoise. I think that's something I saw, which I wish it was the Shaman that he did that to, and then he just drops. I'm assuming that's like an increase in points. I wish it was Blastoise and Moth, or like Moth and like Keldeo or something. But
Yeah.
now the Blastoise can kind of do its defensive role more if it needs to. It's not always going to be Shell Smash, because I feel like if you Terra the Blastoise, you're kind of saying I'm bringing Shell Smash, unless you got like a very specific defensive matchup that you want to do. But yeah, he kind of got bullied by Mary. Mary didn't even set up on him. She kind of just switched around with Annihilate until Annihilate got too many Rage Fist boosts, and then it was a little too late for him to be able to do anything. But I still think that match, even though the score didn't end up looking good, it was a pretty good match. I still kind of believe in what he could do, but from what we've seen so far, you know, it hasn't been the best. Smeargle insta-died and he didn't get to do anything, so that's really unfortunate. Same with the Dawn, didn't really get to do anything. But Roaring Moon was good. And I don't know, what do you think, Za?
Well, there's not as much to say about this one because they've only played one game. The changing of the Terra to Iron Moth, I think the Blastoise is just too many points. So they probably gained points. In my mind, I want to say Moth was 40 and Blastoise was plus 50 points to Terra. So I think that's good. As Ben said, first, we're looking at this construction just because we can, because there's only really one game to talk about it. Get rid of Thunder. Get rid of Tornadus. I mean, I don't know. I literally don't. I get it. Okay, you need things off the ground, but you're never really going to bring this guy. And if you do, he's not like, you don't need the speed tier. Like, use those points and bring Terra back to the Blastoise or move it to the Keldeo. And then I feel like there's overlap between Smeargle and Dun, both being like normal type, like status spreaders or quirky set guys. I just feel like you have a lot of good guys, but I think we said it's just missing something, like just like on the board, and not that you would pick up this specific thing, but like there's Blaziken on the board, like there's still heavy hitters that you could turn Tornadus and like Smeargle or Tornadus into Dun if you really want to keep the Smeargle into something else really, really good. And I just don't know why you don't do that, because I feel like what happened with Mary against the top teams, you just don't have the talent level to compete with them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad or anything, the game.
I feel
he
like
did
this team...
he did forget what Rage Fist does, like how it works, which is unfortunate, because I think he could have got it down to a 3 or 2-0 if he didn't.
I think that's going to happen with this team because it has enough guys to never get 6-0'd, but it's always just going to be a lot of 2, 3, 4-ish losses because they just have too many guys that do not that much individually. Like there's a ton of support here and not like that guy. That guy is not here.
Yeah, I think Moth with Terra can be that guy, but usually I like Moth Terra as a secondary piece, personally.
Yeah,
I don't know if Roaring Moon is that guy. I think he's good. I don't know if he's that guy.
He's close. He's Pippin. Yeah. He's Pippin, but Jordan is not here.
But I'm excited to see this week 2 match. I still think there's a pretty good shot line. City has a good season because I think this team is very usable.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes for sure. I think we can move on.
Yep.
Speaking of their opponent, the Sunnyside Suicunes, we're gonna have her right after him, and Sunnyside has once again completely changed their entire team, and has kind of pivoted to this semi-sun shenanigans with Screamtail and Lilligant and Walking Wake and Charizard, and then 6 of her original guys on the left, with Valiant, Tinglu, Petron, and Polion. So kind of Stall on the left, Sun on the right. Screamtail is a mix of both. And I think it's going to be interesting to see. We haven't seen this team yet because they've only played their Week 1 game way earlier, 2 weeks ago, at the very beginning of Week 1. So I don't know how she is going to play this. But I mean, she made the team worse. I think that's pretty factual. It's 2 different halves kind of mishmashed together. I think she could make it work. We've seen Mug make some pretty odd teams work in the past. I'm worried it's way too defensive. But the offensive Pokemon are really one note and are gonna get shut down. But I really can't say much about like the game against Bandito just because the entire team is so incredibly different. I will say, you know, she got absolutely destroyed by Wellspring, I think. Probably got to plan better for Wellspring when you, just because, you know, it's always going to be the most dangerous Pokemon that your opponent has if they have it. And, you know, your wall getting, killed or two-shot at +2, which I think was Petulant, is really going to make it for a dangerous time if that's what you're, going for to try and win the matchup. What do you think, Saw?
Yeah, it was a tough game week 1. I kind of like the half sun team. I don't like full weather teams in draft. Like I don't always feel like it's necessary most of the time. So sun is tougher to build half of a team than rain is because you have to have so many fire types or ground weak things, and I think Torkoal is the worst guy than Ninetales. But if you have those top 3, it's an interesting build to say they can bring a competent, challenging to prepare for team without bringing the sun. And so, but you have to prepare for Hisuian Lilligant or Walking Wake, especially both of those Terra in the even Terra Lilligant outside the sun is still relatively good. So this team it interests me more than the ones that we've seen where I've given more like construction things because you can't say anything about this like typing wise, like it's fine I guess, but the defensive profile, the Petulant and the Ting Lu, plus the offensive capabilities of just the 2 Sun Sweepers plus Valiant, should if played well be able to win a lot of games. So I'm interested to see what happens. I think this is a very muggish team in the sense that there's really no way to know what's coming to this game. Like any game that you play against this team, it could be full weather, it could be no weather, it could be half weather, it could be screens Screamtail setup, it could be screens Jolteon setup, it could be Calm Mind, Defense Curl, Stored Power Blissey. So who knows? But we're gonna find out.
Yeah, I think this is just a really, really interesting game for sure. Or team. I'm really interested to see what she does with it. She did, I'm remembering now, she did like Fat Finger or incorrectly not Terra her Salamence week 1. So maybe that game would have been closer if she got the Salamence Terra off, because I think Salamence was pretty good in that game.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see how this stall sun works out. We can move on. All right, the Philadelphia Flygons. So this guy is 0-2, but I think, you know, as we will see later in the list, he had some really, really tough competition the first 2 weeks. I think the team is still really strong. I really so I had him week 1. Prepping for it was a nightmare. I think his offensive firepower is really incredible with Terra Thundurus plus Terra Noivern. With Terra, Noivern's actually really strong. And then Single Strike on top of that with Goldengo, who can be defensive but also is just really naturally strong. And then obviously Bax plus the Slowking to pivot around to them. I think this team has a lot good going for it. Like every Pokemon holds value in my opinion. I think these first 2 weeks he's kind of just gotten basically hard called. Like, so week 1 when I played him, I basically hard called that he was gonna try and win with Water Absorb Quagsire, like he was gonna build around that. And I think I pretty much got it right, if I'm being honest. He preserved the Quagsire, he let it. He really, you know, worked around the Quagsire the whole time. And I pretty much played around that being the Pokemon that would ultimately be his downfall. And in my opinion, his recovers with it, his passivity kind of was the downfall of that Quagsire. Because I think he had a pretty good shot at winning if, like, Thundurus, for example, was agility, or if he just attacked more into the team. I think the Goldengo set week 1 was a little bit misguided. Like, it worked and it was kind of cool, but it sacked Gold, who I thought was actually, like, just by himself really strong in this match, like, without having to die. Slowking, Uh, I had to bring a pretty unique Palafin set to beat Slowking. I wish the Slowking had Psychic Noise. I do think that sets and I wish something had Rocky Helmet. Especially, I think that makes a lot of sense to bring Rocky Helmet if you're gonna bring like a fat bulky water to try and stop Rain. Because Rain usually is physical water attackers with the Swift Swim. But I still really like the team. Against Orlando, I think he played honestly a little bit worse. I think one of the major issues is he's playing a little too defensive for how offensive his team is. I think like bring Quagsire both weeks. I don't know if Quagsire is an every week Pokemon. Like I kind of get why it's coming sometimes. Like he had Hisuian Samurott and Volcanion, so like if you're water absorbed, theoretically you can absorb all the water attacks. But I think it's just a Pokemon that can really get taken advantage of in prep if the opponent tries to. I think like he's kind of nerfing himself a little bit with the Pokemon he brings when he should probably be bringing he didn't bring Urshifu Single Strike against me, I believe, and he didn't bring Golden Go week 2, I believe. So like there's been 2 weeks where he hasn't brought his either round 1 or round 2 pick. Sometimes you kind of just got to bring your super strong guy because he's brought Quagsire both weeks. The Thundurus is doing its job. It's doing really well. So that's good at least. He kind of got just beat up on by Great Tusk in the game against Orlando as well. He refused to go Quagsire on Great Tusk, which I thought was really interesting because he lost like 3 Pokemon to Great Tusk after it got speed up with Rapid Spin. So I don't really know why he refused to go Quagsire. But what do you think, Zaw?
I agree. There's a lot of it's I think Philly is playing this like it's a balanced team when it's not. This is by far the most this is more hyper offense than the Rain team. Like this is just coming out at this is hyper offense plus Slowking. Like that's really what it should be. Wheezing is here because we need Defog and a Fairy, but like I don't know that we ever should be bringing like the combination of Slowking, Quagsire, and Wheezing to a game, because then we're benching one of these 4 other guys, and I don't know. I can't remember any in particular plays like they were really ahead at the beginning of the game against the Rain team, and I think that there were moves they could have made. I agree that I think the memento set was unnecessary. You could be screens 1 attack recover, I think, which is something I recommended just because you could have done it multiple times. And I think at this level of play, putting all your eggs in one basket, like one, if it was memento on like Wheezing, okay, I know it doesn't get. I just mean anything that's like a lesser known thing. But Golden Go is so individually strong. All these guys are so individually strong that I think utilizing the offensive capabilities would have been more useful. And then same thing, I think there were ways they could have won the game against Orlando when I was watching it. Like I do think this team could easily have a turnaround. Like it's relatively 4 down, but I don't think haven't gotten like it's -6 is worse than it looks worse than it actually is. I don't think these games were like not close at all. So yeah, Philly, when you watch this, I think you go with the squad, but you're not a balanced team. Like you have your walls. Like if you're bringing Wheezing and Quagsire or Slowking, they should switch in for 1, maximum 2 turns, and then get them out, and then start attacking again. More attacking.
I think if you do really like Quagsire, it might actually be best to trade it, because I would be very worried that you rely on it too much and it sits on the field too much and it might end up being a momentum sink. Although I don't know why you didn't go Quagsire on the Great Tusk, truthfully, in that Orlando game. Looking back at it, Great Tusk kind of just killed like 2 guys for free in that game. But we can move on. All the way down here at number 9, I believe this is, we have the Vancouver Valiants, who are 1-1 after 2 pretty tough fought games at the beginning of this season. So Vancouver's pretty interesting in that sometimes he just makes really odd plays for reasons I'll never fully understand. In that week 1 against Metal, which he won, he stayed in with Skeledirge against Terapagos, like Toxic Terapagos, for way, way too long. But he also made some right plays with like Beartic and Ursaluna to kill Metagross and like break open the game for him. But again, at the end, he like uh, does some weird stuff with Galarian Slowking, which puts him in a position to lose when he really didn't need to be in a position to lose. And he Thunder Waves at the end, which risks like when Psyshock O-Code Sneasler, and there's really no reason to. But he did end up winning that game, and I think it was really cool that Beartic did really well. So I like that a lot for sure. And then this past week against Garden City, he really should have won this game, in my opinion. He was up and he was doing pretty good. And then at the very end, he kind of just played really, really odd, in my opinion. He, so the Ursaluna does literally nothing this game. He kind of just plays around Jugulus, super weird. He sacks like 1.5 Mons to Jugulus for essentially no reason. And then I think his Latios actually could have just like straight up won this game consistently. He sacks his Slowking, which is really unfortunate. He probably should have just gone Ursaluna on Garchomp. And then he like sacks Cornerstone on Gyapdos.
It came in and it went down to the Sturdy. He switched it in and gave up the Sturdy.
Yeah, he did that. I don't know if that was the right play, is what I'm saying.
No, it definitely wasn't.
I feel like, in the end, Ursaluna ends up doing nothing in this game. I feel like he could have gone Ursaluna or something and probably had a pretty good... Because he ends up going Ursaluna on a free switch and getting O-Code by close combat anyways. I think that was really where things kind of fell apart. If he went... what's it called? So his Latios ended up outspeeding this Gyapdos. So his Latios was... Like, if we go back a few turns... So... Latios is out on Gyapdos, right? Yeah, so Latios is out on Gyapdos. I think this is turn 16 of the game. I have the game open, so I'm going turn by turn here because I'm trying to explain it to him. Latios is out on Gyapdos. Latios beats Gyapdos, or Latios outspeeds Gyapdos for sure because this Gyapdos is, this Latios is Scarf, right? So I feel like what you have to do here, pretty much, is Draco Meteor again. You do probably about 50 to 60%, even at -2 with Draco. And then I would and then I would go Cornerstone after. And I would click Ivy Cudgel. And then I would what's it called? Because then either he stays in, and if he's Scarf, he's dead, because Draco into Ivy Cudgel would kill. Or he goes Aloe, and Aloe dies, and your guy is at like 100% still. And he's forced to go Heatran, which lets you Ivy Cudgel that. And then if you can get Ursaluna in for actually free on not Zapdos, Ursaluna can kind of just pick off a kill with Headlong or probably just Facade, especially after the Heatran Terras. Basically, like, letting Ursaluna go down and losing one of your sacks is just really, really bad, in my opinion. And letting Orgerpon just, like, take 100%... Like, he lets Orgerpon... He has, like, health advantage and Mon advantage and hazard advantage at 4-3. And then he essentially loses 2 100% Pokemon for nothing into this Gyapdos in, like, 2 turns. And then he flip turns on Gyapdos and loses his other Pokemon. So just a really bad series of plays against Gyapdos is what does it in for him at the end here. Which is very unfortunate, because I think he had a really good shot at winning that game. So he could be 2-0 now. I think just a few odd plays here and there have really led to some unfortunate situations for him. What do you think, Za?
Valiants is interesting to talk about because he probably should have won both games, but he also tried desperately to lose both games. He didn't lose the first one, but there was a lot of plays he made weird near the end, like something with the Beartic. I don't remember exactly what it was. But he should have won and did, but very easily could have lost. Then the Grottle game, he should have won, but he made too many of those 3 plays and did lose. So it's challenging to rank him because if he keeps doing that in every game, he's not going to do well with the level of talent in the division. So even though I think the team is competent and he plays 75% of the game he plays well, I don't know if he gets nervous at the end when he thinks he's going to win. I'm not really sure what happens, but he pretty consistently makes these really like 3 or 4 weird plays in the game, and then it just determines whether he wins or not, if like whether it's a roll or the opponent also throws it back to him. But I think he could definitely go up. He's the champion. He's the defending champion. I don't know if the pressure's getting to him, but Valiant's just got to cut. Even if you cut down the mistakes from like 4-ish weird turns to just 1 or 2, you'll probably win 5 games or 6 games. But if this keeps happening, it's going to be tough to compete with these other top teams. Although it doesn't look like he has that devastating of a schedule from what I can see. So
Yeah,
I think you got to tighten it up, big man. You got to tighten it up.
I think he can definitely pick up some wins. He just has to, tighten up the play a little bit. I think the team is still pretty solid. You know, all these guys can really do stuff. Just a little bit of a play increase, and I think things like it's not even bad all the time. It's just like 80% of the turns are fine, and then like 20% of the time he just makes some really odd decisions in my opinion. We'll figure it out. I think we can move on to the next game. Luscious Lopunnies, all the way down here in I think this is 8th, right? Something like that.
Yes, 8th. Yeah, it's 8th.
So this is a massive jump up because they did beat Lion City pretty bad, but they did lose to Tottenham, and I think they actually for the first time got straight outplayed by Tottenham, which is pretty nuts. The Bloodmoon was going absolutely insane in that game. Just clicking Bloodmoon everywhere. The red card to get Mew low was really cool. And then clicking Earth Power on Corviknight Roost and yawning Corviknight to force it to switch out so it could get chip on even more stuff. Bloodmoon ended up getting chip on Corviknight, on Mew, on Kleavor. Corviknight was chipping down literally everything. Bloodmoon. Bloodmoon was chipping down literally everything. And because Mary has a kind of a passive team, she kind of just had to take it. She couldn't really do much about it. And then at the end, she tried to set up with Annihilate. I think if Mary, on the turn where Cinderace clicks Gunk Shot on the Fairy Annihilate, if she clicks Rage Fist instead of Drain Punch and kills the Cinderace right there, there's a pretty good chance that she can just win. But she clicks Drain Punch instead, and the Poison type means that, and no boost, so it's not nearly as strong as Rage Fist, means that Cinderace pretty easily lives, and she puts herself into a pretty tough position there. I don't know. I just feel like she got a little bit outplayed in that last game against Tottenham. She did get poisoned twice. She did mention that in the chat. How much those poisons mattered? I mean, they sucked. I think if she clicked Rage Fist, the poison would have mattered, but she clicked Drain Punch, so it's because then she would have doubled down, and that wouldn't have been good. But she clicked Drain Punch instead, so I don't know how much that truly matters in that situation. Grimmsnarl got poisoned too, I believe. I don't know. What do you think, Saw? I think the team is still pretty bad, but obviously Mary's a really good player. That's why she won week 1. I definitely think she's going to bounce back, but this last week kind of shows some of the weaknesses of the team, in my opinion, where strong guys can really just break through it.
Yeah, I mean the first week was just, I think, the other player wasn't as prepared for this, and then we saw the reverse in the next week where Tottenham is known to bring some really weird sets. And then I don't think Mary has the resources that she's used to having to overcome some of the weirdness. So when you're relying on a lot of bulk and setup, when you lose the bulk, so say on Mew, old Mew would have been fine, right? We would have just recovered, would have been fine. But when you lose the bulk on some of these guys, they can't get it back, and Corviknight can get it taken advantage of sometimes because of the aspects of Roost. So while they did lose to Tottenham, it's hard to explain. I don't take losses to like cheese sets the same as I do like a straight up game. I think she was saying she got hacked a lot in the game. I don't remember that. I think she more just like lost. But
Yeah, it was she got poisoned twice.
Yeah, which
how much they mattered. How much they mattered. I mean, because she does watch these, so maybe she's gonna get mad and like type in chat. They mattered a ton.
I don't think it mattered. I don't think it mattered.
I can't see how they mattered too much.
Yeah.
Maybe like if you clicked Rage Fist with Annihilate and then Annihilate died to poison, that would have mattered. Grimmsnarl lost like 20% health or something to poison, or like 24% health. That's like annoying. I don't know how much it mattered.
I mean, I think Mary will be fine looking at the schedule. I think she'll be in the playoffs, but there's a way where it doesn't happen. So you got to tighten it up. You got to tighten up that play. Show us setup. We want to see it. We want to see the all setup team this week. We want to see. What do we want to see? We got to see Curse Clodsire. We got to see all kinds of stuff. Let's see it.
Yeah. And with that, I believe we can move on to the next team. Alright, so we have here the Tottenham Hoothoots. So you can see that this guy is 2-0. So why is he all the way down here? So there's really, you have to keep into context the original placements, right? This is a massive jump for Tottenham. I think he went from last all the way up to, he's in the top half now. I still think the team itself is really not good. It's, very mid. But I will say he's been playing pretty decently. I mean, that week 1 he played pretty bad until the very end. But he's really had a lot of control, in particular, of Ursaluna Bloodmoon. Ursaluna Bloodmoon, he's been playing immaculately. He's been doing really, really well with Ursaluna Bloodmoon. It didn't actually get kills against Mary after looking the game back, but it did phenomenal at breaking everything down and getting them low and putting on a ton of pressure and forcing Mary to switch around. I think he's been playing that Pokemon exceptionally well. And if you play one Pokemon exceptionally well through 2 weeks, it can result in some Ws. And as we can see, that's what he got. And he's got him against 2 pretty high-profile, pretty well-known battlers in the PBO. So you got to give him some props. I do think, it was more Garden City, crumbling in week 1 than him doing anything, especially because, his Meowscarada wasn't protein. But in week 2, I do think he straight up just was better than Mary. He outplayed her. So I think you got to give him major prop. And then, the team is very odd, and I still don't think it's, great. But the pressure it puts on with, Terra Hacks and the 3 really fast starters and Bloodmoon, you can't deny it has some strong offensive pressure. So there is that, at least. What do you think, Zah?
We talked about it before the season that this team has enough usable pieces, especially in Gen 9, that the combination of Bloodmoon and Terra Greninja puts a ton of offensive pressure on. And then there's a lot of pivoting to get Bloodmoon in. So Bloodmoon played well on this. We'll get some wins. But if we're being 100% honest, I mean, week 1 was fluky, right? Oranges got destroyed them for almost the entirety of the game, and then got caught in Bloodmoon got one combined up, and Oranges probably switched around too much, and they just couldn't recover from it, which doesn't invalidate the win, but it's more of a fluky thing. And then week 2. Again, this is a personal preference for me. Everybody doesn't have to agree, but I'm not going to say I don't like the cheese sets because that's part of draft, but I'm always going to take things that say, if you played 2 out of 3, would it still work? I don't think that it would work, which, again, that's not the format, but this is just a me personal preference thing. I would rather see a straight-up fight, dominant victory to get my man here up higher, because to believe, if we keep moving Tottenham up, right, with us saying he has a legitimate chance to win the championship, and I don't think either one of us right now believe, not so much this fine young gentleman, but that this combination of Pokemon can win the championship. So that's why he's here instead of say in the top 5, even though he's 2-0.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he just keeps winning, he has to keep going up. He's got me next week. I think it's a pretty tough matchup for him, but something that could be doable. He's got a pretty rough schedule. He's got Crown Point, but then he's got Orlando and Heracross, and it's really just and then Chimps. It's not like the greatest schedule in the world, so we'll just have to see how it goes. We can move on to the number 6 slot. All right, coming in at number 6, we've got the Saudas Chimps, who have a 2-0 victory over the Woopers, and then a 0-2 loss against the Hercross, the Hallownest Hercross. I think he's been pretty solid so far. I think the team's been doing some good stuff. Week 1, like we said, Raikou really did its thing. Infernape was putting on some pretty good pressure there as well with its Thunder Punch set. So I liked that showing. If I remember correctly, I think Araquanid was in that game. So the team itself is still like pretty solid. I still understand like the hazard stacking aspects of it. I think it's pretty good. He did get like not a ton of value out of his Glamora in week 2, in my opinion. I think he predicted hazards and tried to mortal spin them away, but then he just got hazard stacked after Glamora went down anyways. So that was unfortunate. And then he kind of got goobed by like Rillaboom and Dragapult. And kind of just got outplayed in terms of like getting switcherooed on his Gambit and stuff. Nothing really went his way in that game. The screens kept going up with Dragapult. Metal was just getting a ton of value out of all his guys. He missed a Hypnosis, so that is huge. But you can't really rely on Hypnosis to win games. I do think Metal was in control pretty much that whole match. So I think it's kind of difficult to place him any higher than this. But I don't think he's played bad necessarily. I think he's kind of played a similar level to last season. It's just maybe things haven't always haven't gone his way exactly the same way as it did last season. Probably a little outplayed in week 2 for sure. Had control pretty comfortably the whole time week 1 in my opinion. What do you think, Za? I think this is like kind of there's not much to say here. I think he's played pretty standard, pretty solid, just kind of like a solid middle of the road placement for Saudas. What do you think, Za?
Yeah, this is just the in-between team, right? Like nothing out of the ordinary in any of the play, as Ben mentioned. Yeah, if he, even if he hits the Hypnosis in the last week's game, I think it would be challenging for him to win from that position. I think it would have had to stay asleep for multiple turns. So I think no matter what, that was probably going to be a loss from that position. I also don't think they were really in much danger of losing the first week, from what I remember. So this is something we need to see more of. Like I said, this one I think is just a little bit below like a championship power level. Like it has a lot of really solid guys, but after you get past the first 2 guys, like without Terra on the Sinistra, the Sinistra's not the Terra captain, right? It's the Raikou and Orlando.
Yeah.
I think under the top 2, like there are seasons where none of these guys under the top 2 even get drafted. And it doesn't mean any of them are bad. I'm just saying it is kind of like a hodgepodge of guys. A lot of guys which I like, but aren't consistent performers. So while I believe in Chimps as the player, and he's shown us doing things with some little off-brand stuff before, we have to see him do it with these guys. So that's why he's at, I believe, what are we at, 7? That's why he's in the middle of the pack.
6.
Yeah, 6.
This is 6.
Yeah.
So like
6
not a bad
then.
placement. Yeah. I think 1-1
Yeah, no.
plus 0 is pretty standard for 6th. I think this is good. And we can move on to number 5, I think. Coming in at number 5, we have the Hallownest Hercross. So we just talked about him against Saudas. I think he had control the whole time. The taunt Rillaboom was good. The switcheroo Sneasler was good. The screens Pult was good. A lot of good sets. Calling the Mortal Spin and not setting up hazards just to do it the turn after Glamora dies. I think that was good with Sandy Shocks. I think he had to control that whole game. I think he played it well, and I think he just kind of guided the game along the exact path he wanted to, which was really smart. Week 1, I think letting Metagross go down early was a pretty big blunder because it really opened up Beartic. He probably didn't expect Beartic, but if you look at his team, it is actually kind of Ice Week. The resist is just Metagross, and Diancie can take hits, but it probably needs a Terra to a resist to like really comfortably take them. I still think the Terras on this team could be theoretically better, and I think like Squawkability could still be something else, but I understand why it's here, and I understand why Muck is here. But overall, 1-1 plus 0. Week 1, some mistakes. Week 2, those were rectified a bit, and pretty solid game. It's kind of similar to Saudas, where it's like I think we need to see more still from this team and from Metal. But I do think he is obviously he beat Saudas, so he's one spot ahead of him, and I think his play has been like ever so slightly a little bit more solid. What do you think, Za?
Yeah, week 1 was a little bit tough. I remember Metal is the gentleman who said that you don't need water types in Gen 9, and then Beartic showed up week 1. Which Beartic won't show up every week, but I just thought that was an interesting tidbit. But that's one of the draft like this. I think we said before that we really liked the top 6, but thought the bottom 4, not the bottom 4 because I get Muck, but the other guys were a little bit not unnecessary, but maybe weren't adding what you could need to support the top, and I think that might have been a little bit of a remnant of that. But week 2 was a pretty dominant performance. Like I still think this should probably be the best team, so it should continue to rise. But yeah, week 1, we kind of knocked them down a bit. Just not, and I'm going to be 100%. I wouldn't have prepped for the Beartic either. So it's not even a criticism. That would have been me too. Same thing would have happened to me. But yeah, letting the Metagross down week 1 was really the nail in the coffin. Although that was it shows up as a close. What did he go -2? That was a close game. He definitely could have won the game. Like it was not like he was dominated or anything. So I can't imagine this team ever getting dominated. So I expect him to finish like 5-3 or 6-2, probably like +10 or something. It's even though this is where he is in the power rankings, I'd be surprised if he doesn't move up.
Yeah, kind of a rough start, but a bounce back, and I think Metal is on the up and up. So for the rest of the season, we'll see.
Yeah.
This team is just too strong to fail. Too strong to fail. We can move on to number 4. The Garden City Grotles. A small drop for the Garden City Grotles. They also lost to Tottenham along with the Lopunnies. But they did make some massive team changes, and I do think the team is actually better than before. And I liked the team before. Now they have Terra Quaquaval, along with their Terra Heatran, 2 real Terra captains. They've got Weavile, who can put on some real offensive pressure. They've got Munkidori, who's like, I think a little underrated in the sense everyone thinks it's super giga shit, and I think it's like not as giga shit as everyone seems to think it is. I think it's okay at times. It's got a nice speed tier, and it can like fake out poison you, and it can psychic noise you, and it can actually be kind of like okay on like the Spadef side, if I remember correctly. And I also think Magnezone is a slightly underrated Pokemon. I think Whimsicott's just straight up good. I think Whimsicott's really, really good. And I think Staraptor, for where we put it now, is pretty good value. We put it at like 50, and Staraptor can kind of just nuke stuff sometimes. So I think this team itself is constructed really strong. I do think they were losing that Vancouver game. And if Vancouver didn't like Giga throw at the end, they probably lose, and they're 0-2, and they're probably down really bad on this list. So this is really more of a tell of how good I think the team is. And I don't think they've been playing bad either, except against Tottenham. Like, they played better 95% of the game. They just didn't preserve their Gyarados, and it led to a really dangerous situation with a Bloodmoon. And I think they could have had a dangerous situation against Ursaluna as well if Vancouver didn't just throw out his Ursaluna. So I do think like it's a pretty interesting spot to be in, where you have 2 close games and you should probably be 0-2, but you're not. But your team is really good, and I think it got better than how it was before. So we put them here. I really need to see more from them, because I do know Oranges is a really good player. Their schedule definitely lightens up a bit. I think they're probably going to end up climbing this ranking. What do you think, Za?
So they changed their team. I like it a lot better now. Ben liked this team more than I did at the start. Tara Cuevo's about to go off. This is maybe the best thing on the board. Like this can win every week. I'm so happy somebody actually has it now. And I also agree with the Star Raptor take. I don't know how we got this thing down to so many points. This thing's good. Like strong flying stab, choice scarf, boosted brave bird with U-turn should be good. I still think Alomamole is bad. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's good. But past that, yeah, week one they just got caught in a trap. You could clearly see they shades of my legendary Vivillon reverse sweep game. But they should have won that one, and then yeah, they should have lost the last week probably. But it's not like the worst throw I've ever seen by Valiants. Like they did a couple of strange things.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen worse from
Yeah,
Valley.
it wasn't that bad. Like it doesn't make it out like they got gifted a win. It was
Yeah,
relatively close game. So they should probably be 2-0. I don't think their team was a championship team, regardless of how good they are, because there are other good people. But now I think it has a better chance. Still don't like Alomomola. Get rid of that guy. But
they
I
are
like Garden City's chances. I like
they
Garden
are
City.
triple watered up, so they don't even really
Yeah.
need the yellow.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like Wash plus Quavel is enough. If you really like it, Grotles, more power to you. I think this thing is a trap. I think Mola is a trap, personally.
I think Mola is okay. I think it's not as bad as Za says, but I don't think it's as good as some people think, where they draft it in like the freaking second round.
The second
Uh,
round.
all right, with that we can move on to number 3. I think all of the last 3 teams are 2-0. We've got the New Orleans Swamperts. So I think this has been really interesting for New Orleans. I watched back both of their games. I do think they're like Orgerpon is kind of they're playing pretty solid, right? Everything's doing their role. Everything's kind of distributed evenly. He's kind of just bringing like some pretty standard good sets, but like Okidogi's doing what he's supposed to do. It got 2 kills against Crown Point and really broke open that game and made it impossible and opened up Tyranitar a lot, made it impossible for Crown Point to win. Orgerpon really broke open Mug, so like these games aren't like super unique or anything, but he's really just doing what he needs to win, evenly distributing kills, uh, really playing his walls correctly, getting them in when he needs to. I think everything's like really solid, kind of like standard and good. Like everything's kind of just in place where it needs to be. I still think he has a ton of points. He can do some stuff. He hasn't brought Fan or Kamala yet, which still makes me question why they're here, and I feel like they could be something else. But I won't harp on too much of the team changes because he likes his team and it's working. His competition so far hasn't been like the most out of this world, but I don't think any of the 2-0 teams have actually had like insane competition except for maybe who we put at number 1. So really solid play all around. I like how he plays with Donphan. I know that Donphan's only 1-1, but I'm a Donphan user, and as a fellow Donphan enjoyer, I do think he uses Donphan the correct way. I like it a lot. What do you think, Za?
I think that he has a lot of things that are easy to win with, which is the correct way to draft if your goal is to win. Like both Ogrepon Water and Gouging Fire are incredibly easy to win with and can just win the game by themselves without really anything going on. Little Ogrepon, I think Ben is also on the Ogrepon Water train. This guy is like top 10 in Paldex. You can't convince me Darkrai is better than Ogrepon Water. I don't believe it. Or Garchomp. Like this guy is kind of the man. And Crown is really good. He's been pivoting well. And utilizing the guys he has to their best potential. As Ben mentioned, maybe not the toughest games so far, but they weren't really that close at all, to be honest with you. So that's why he's up here. And there's no reason to think this team, the top, like between Water, Gouging Fire, and Iron Crown, like that's a great and Bundle. That's a great core that you can put a lot around. You just play offense. So, and that's what he's doing. So that's why he's up here.
Yeah, he's playing good. I think there's like not much to complain about in terms of his team construction. Everything's like none of the sets are like super crazy, but they don't really need to be. he's chipping everything down and then kind of just like getting his kills. It's been solid. It's been really solid. I have no complaints in terms of play. I think he's played very well. We can move on to number 2. All right, so up here at number 2, it's gonna be me, the Alabama Alakazams. So this is my Rain team. I don't think we can really put Rain at number 1, so we didn't. So consistently these past 2 weeks, what we've seen is that I've been kind of pivoting around, sacking some stuff in the early game, trying to chip down the walls, and then getting in a Rain Sweeper, whether that's Overquill or Barraskewda, and kind of just cleaning up the game from there. So that's kind of how you play Rain. You preserve your Rain Sweeper, and then you get to the end game, and they don't have any of their walls left to stop it. Week 1, the plan was to take advantage of Quagsire, and Quagsire was kind of yawning and taking advantage of me, but I got the rocks up, which I thought was super important. Palafin was able to kind of turn it with the Throat Chop Spray on the Slowking. Assaultvest Shreds was able to wall Thundurus. He didn't really even have a move for it after we exchanged pace, and I looked. And then at the end, Overquill, calling the Water Absorb on Quagsire, was able to get an SD up and kind of sweep the game. And week 2, kind of similar stuff. Early game was kind of shaky. Cryogonal was looking scary. But then the pivoting started happening. Everything got chipped, and Barraskewda got in on Rain. And it was kind of curtains from there. Barraskewda was able to liquidate the field to death. So even if things were a little shaky in both early games, I don't think anything was ever out of control. I don't think it was ever out of my hands. And I pretty much, firmly wrestled control back in the game and kind of just got exactly to the line I wanted to get my sweepers in and clean up the games. And I think it's been pretty solid so far. I think it's been a pretty solid showcasing of what Rain can be with some of its best guys, because I think these are the best Pokemon Rain can be on, in my opinion. It is full Rain, so we're kind of just running full tilt with that. But teams are, I think, because I've been looking into the future matchups, teams are feeling the wrath of Rain. They're feeling the wrath of Barraskewda. I think Barraskewda is an insane Pokemon. There are some matchups where you literally cannot do anything, and you need a really fat water, or else you're kind of screwed. Barraskewda 2-hit KOs literally every Pokemon. I think it's kind of nuts how insane this Pokemon has the potential to be. But I think it's been solid so far, a solid start to the season. What do you think, Za?
Yeah, I've liked the games so far. There were definitely opportunities for both of the other teams to win. I think some of the play style is so telegraphed, right? So if you get creative with it, people don't bring Protect enough against either style of whether to stall the turns. There's all kinds of things that I think the higher some of the more creative players could figure out what to do, but based on what's actually happened, it hasn't been figured out yet, right? So I don't think that we can put it 1 because there's been as equally well performing a team that just has more options. But if people try to play defensively against this team, they will lose. People have not been stacking hazards on the things, not wearing boots. They're just not really getting that creative. They're trying to block Barraskewda with their water, which, yeah, if they keep doing that, that's not going to work. So I've liked what I've seen so far, and there's no reason to think... Let me look at the schedule. There's no reason... I mean, Tottenham's going to do some weird stuff. I'm sure we'll see, Sunny Day, Bloodmoon. Sorry for dropping your heat, Tottenham. But I also want to point out, I feel like Amoonguss it never gets picked in draft, but on Rain, it's pretty good. We saw the power of Spore. If you come to these matchups and don't respect Spore, I don't know what to tell you. You got to at least account for it in these games, right? We haven't seen Riombi yet. That could do something. And we haven't really seen... I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 Arch games where Arch really does something. Because it's with the Open Terra and the fact you have to account for the 2 water guys, it's challenging to really care about it because we've seen it on Rain and PBO and it never does anything. So I'm just waiting for the Arch game. I'm interested to see that. But I think this is the right placing for Rain.
Yeah, I think it's it feels better than Sun to me personally. I've used both now. The team feels strong at the moment currently. I kind of like it. I think we'll see even more later on if it can hold up against more scrutiny. And I think we can move on to number 1. Alright, so coming in at number 1, we have the Orlando Magikarps. A win against Crown Point, a win against Flygons. So like we said, all 3 2-0 teams haven't had like the craziest schedules to for teams to go against. So it's like the strength of schedule for all 3 isn't the best. But I do think they had pretty convincing showings in both of these games. Even though the Philly game was only a 2-0, he was ahead the entire time, in my opinion. Great Tusk really put in work in that game against Philly, and then Torn really put in work against Crown Points. It kind of feels like he's always been in control. He has kind of the fat pieces to really sit. No one seems to really be respecting Garg. They have like these ×4 weak Pokemon to Salt Cure shenanigans, and they don't run Covert Cloak, which is really interesting. And the offensive pieces, Samurott, Tusk, Torn, they're all doing their jobs. Well, the fat pieces, kind of just end up living forever. So a really solid play. The team still really good. I like it a lot. He has like 3 guys who haven't came, which I think is kind of a telling. It's the like non-Terra Mismagius, the non-Terra Electrode, and Bronzong. I think Bronzong is good. I do think the 2 weak links are non-Terra Mismagius and non-Terra Electrode, but I still think those mons have value. Mismagius is still a fast ghost, and Hisuian Electrode is still like a really fast Pokemon with coverage to hit grounds as an electric type. So I think, and it can also do like Leech shenanigans. So like even the bad Pokemons on this team can still do stuff. His play has been really solid, and I think he's definitely deserving of the number 1 spot after the first 2 weeks. What do you think, Saw?
Yeah, I mean, he's had good games. Same thing as we said earlier. I think Philly's a strong team. Crown Point, just not really that great of a matchup, like bringing the sun into the Tusk itself. People not playing around Garg. Not that it's that I won't be like it's that easy to play around Garg. Like you bring 1 Salt Cure, like 1 Covert Cloak guy, and that beats it. That's not true at all. I feel like people have tried to gotten into this mind. Oh, it's not really that good or oppressive. No, it is. It's extremely annoying to play against. And I mean, if you lose one thing, game's over because you can't beat this guy. Orlando always plays Tornadus Therian relatively well. They play it the Regenerator way, the pivoting way, the way we like it to see it played. They played Tusk very well the first couple of weeks. I don't think that this team will end up at number 1, if I'm just being honest. Like I think it's good, but surely people will figure out how to at least play around Garganical a little bit better. Like this with Terra as a top threat is probably the top threat on this team, that or Tusk. So you got to bring more of a plan for it, but you can't say anything about what he's been doing. And also, I mean, he should go 6-2 minimum. No, looking at the schedule, like it's probably going to be maybe 5-3 minimum, but he has a real chance to win like 7 or 8, 6, 7, or even 8 games. So we got him up here now. All the kills between essentially 3 guys and then support. I think that's a normal, good way to play PAL decks. So good job, Magikarps. Good stuff.
Yeah, I think he has a pretty good thing going for him for sure. I like it a lot. And I think with that, these have been the power rankings after week 2 of PBO season 8. I think it's been a pretty good season so far. I've been liking a lot of the games. Thank you for watching. Peace out.